Erasing your existence sounds like the perfect escape plan. No debts, no responsibilities, total freedom. But the universe has a hilarious way of punishing stupidity. Forget the brilliant cinematic escapes. We are looking at 50 absolute clowns who faked their own deaths and instantly got dragged back to reality because of sheer, embarrassing incompetence. 1. Faking a brutal carjacking and vanishing into thin air is a solid criminal plan. But you know what ruins a flawless disappearance? Refusing to give up your gym membership. This absolute genius kept his Planet Fitness Black Card active because, apparently, maintaining his triceps was a higher priority than staying out of federal prison. Since the card works nationwide, he just kept swiping his way across multiple states. Every workout left a massive digital footprint for investigators. The cops literally just waited by the dumbbells. Honestly, prioritizing your sick gains over a life of freedom is a wild flex. 2. Facing massive fraud charges, a financial advisor went full Hollywood. He threw his private plane on autopilot, parachuted into Alabama, and let the empty aircraft crash into a residential neighborhood. Miraculously, nobody was killed. You'd assume a stunt this unhinged meant he was fully prepared to eat bugs in the wilderness forever. Nope. The epic manhunt lasted a pathetic 48 hours. Authorities tracked him straight to a local campground because this mastermind paid for his spot using his hotel rewards card. When you are fleeing the government, maybe skip the double points and just use cash. 3. To escape a painfully messy divorce and avoid splitting his assets, one husband faked his own drowning. He spent 6 peaceful months hiding out at a buddy's ranch, probably feeling untouchable. But then pure greed kicked in, and he actually tried to cash out his own life insurance policy. Let me clarify the absolute delusion here. He submitted the paperwork, naming himself as the beneficiary, to collect money on his own fatal accident. Listen, you cannot walk into an office breathing air and demand a payout for your own funeral. Insurance fraud requires at least a little bit of effort. 4. A guy vanishes on a routine business trip, gets declared deceased, and his grieving wife collects a massive life insurance payout. 5 completely peaceful years go by. Then, his mother is sitting on the couch watching a random local news segment about Canadian maple syrup production. Suddenly, she spots a guy walking in the background of the shot. She recognized his exact walk instantly, because moms literally notice everything. She booked a flight to Canada the very next morning. You can steal thousands and flee the country, but you absolutely cannot hide from an angry mother with a valid passport. 5. Staging a tragic hunting accident by having your buddy shoot a deer and spread the blood around is surprisingly creative. They held a deeply emotional funeral, and everyone bought the tragic misfire story. A few weeks later, this supposedly dead man casually strolled into the local taxidermist to pick up his prized deer mount. Yes, the exact same deer used to stage his own murder scene. The shop owner watched the evening news, instantly recognized the walking corpse, and called the cops. He successfully pulled off the ultimate disappearing act, but ruined it for a wall decoration. 6. If you are burning your sedan to a crisp to fake a fiery crash, you really need to consider where your prop body comes from. One overachiever went fully committed, but the forensics team quickly realized the crispy victim sitting in the driver's seat was completely embalmed. Turns out, this lunatic broke into a university medical lab and stole a donated cadaver to serve as his stunt double. Detectives matched the remains to the school's missing inventory in about an hour. He managed to upgrade his standard fraud charges straight into felony grave robbery. 7. Leaving behind a gruesome, blood-soaked crime scene usually convinces the cops that something terrible happened. Someone staged a vicious carjacking, splashing pints of blood everywhere before vanishing. It was a masterpiece of deception, until the lab results showed the victim was entirely female. The absolute sociopath had secretly drawn his own sister's blood over several months to use as special effects for his big escape. He completely forgot to mention the plan to her. When detectives knocked on her door to deliver the tragic news, she was very happy to confirm her brother was just a massive idiot. 8. Budgeting is important when planning a major federal crime. One incredibly cheap scammer found a random, unclaimed corpse and paid a homeless man exactly $50 to go to the morgue and positively identify the body as him. The guy happily took the $50, walked straight into the police precinct, and instantly snitched on the entire operation. $50 was the absolute maximum amount of cash this guy was willing to spend on accomplice loyalty. If your grandmaster plan to cheat death hinges on a cheap bribe, you totally deserve the handcuffs waiting for you. 9. Faking terminal cancer to escape your life is a genuinely awful thing to do. One guy committed fully, throwing a tearful goodbye party before staging a peaceful passing at home so his wife could cash in. He stayed hidden for exactly 6 months before he just got terribly bored of staying indoors. Without a single second thought, he strolled into his favorite local dive bar and ordered his usual draft beer. The bartender did not even flinch, just quietly dialed the police before serving the drink. Apparently, breaking the law is easy, but breaking a solid drinking habit is impossible. 10. Faking a gruesome industrial accident seems like a solid way to disappear, provided you actually check for security cameras first. A worker had his buddy operate a massive crane to simulate a fatal crushing incident. The federal safety inspectors showed up expecting a horrific scene. Instead, they found zero blood and completely clear surveillance footage of the two supposed victims happily high-fiving each other directly under the camera. They literally did a victory dance, celebrating their own genius, and deleted absolutely none of the tapes. Calling them criminal masterminds would be an insult to actual criminals. 11. Escaping a messy past by staging a boating accident and fleeing to rural Texas worked out beautifully for one guy. He collected his insurance, kept his head down, and enjoyed 4 peaceful years off the grid. The problem was his absolute obsession with local municipal politics. He started attending every town hall meeting, screaming passionately into microphones about property taxes. His fiery speeches were so entertaining that the local evening news broadcast featured his face front and center. Unfortunately, his ex-wife religiously watched the news. Civic engagement single-handedly ended his very short criminal career. 12. Sometimes the universe just wants to humble you in the most hilarious way possible. One guy pulled off the ultimate vanishing act to escape crushing debts and active warrants. He got a brand new name, moved to a completely different country, and built a flawless new identity. It was the perfect escape plan, until he actually died of natural causes just 3 years later. Because everyone back home had already mourned his fake passing, absolutely nobody showed up to his actual legitimate funeral. He scored 0 attendance at both events. You have to respect that level of consistent unpopularity. 13. A successful dentist decided he was completely tired of drilling cavities, so he vanished during a solo sailing trip. His empty boat was found drifting, and authorities naturally presumed he was sleeping with the fishes. 2 weeks later, the Coast Guard accidentally stumbled across him happily working as a bartender in Honduras. The absolute best part? When they checked his pockets, he was still carrying his official Delaware dental license in his everyday wallet. If you are abandoning your entire existence to become a tropical beach bum, take 5 minutes to buy a new wallet. 14. Pulling off a fake aviation disaster takes a lot of serious commitment. One bold scammer staged a horrific plane crash high up in the mountains, scattering twisted metal and burning his own suitcases to make the scene look terrifyingly real. The investigators were completely fooled, but his greed was significantly larger than his brain. A few weeks later, he officially filed a substantial insurance claim asking for reimbursement for the designer luggage he lost in the crash. It turns out deceased men generally do not need financial compensation for missing underwear and a toothbrush. 15. Moving to Thailand and building a brand new identity gave this fugitive 12 glorious years of untraceable freedom. He was living the ultimate dream right up until his grandson's birthday. Trying to be a good fake grandpa, he jumped on a quick video call to celebrate. The kid thought it was super cool and recorded the chat for a middle school presentation about family heritage. His teacher was watching the project, squinted at the screen, and instantly recognized the guy from an episode of America's Most Wanted. A cute classroom show and tell instantly mutated into a federal arrest. 16. Creating a fake identity to collect permanent disability after staging a fatal workplace accident is a bold move. Doing it while continuing to live in the exact same tiny town is just spectacular laziness. This guy absolutely refused to change his daily routine. He worked out at the same local gym, used the same barber, and shopped at his usual grocery store. The charade ended when his former boss, who had literally paid for his funeral wreath, spotted him casually buying cheap beer in the checkout lane. Avoiding prison requires at least changing your zip code. 17. Faking a fatal drop off a construction site requires meticulous attention to detail. Leaving behind scuffed boots and a heavily blood-stained work jacket on the concrete makes for a very convincing crime scene. It was a flawless setup, except the supposedly dead man left his recent dry cleaning receipt tucked right inside the breast pocket. It boldly featured his real name, his active cell phone number, and a polite note reminding him to pick up his slacks on Thursday. When Thursday rolled around, the dry cleaner called, and so did the police. 18. Trying to fake a brutal shark attack in Hawaii sounds like the plot of a terrible movie. A guy left a torn wetsuit and a bloodied surfboard washing up on the sand, creating massive local panic. Marine investigators started examining the evidence, but quickly realized the terrifying bite marks were suspiciously perfectly symmetrical. After a quick search, they matched the tooth pattern exactly to a cheap plastic shark jaw sold as a Halloween decoration at Party City. If you are staging a gruesome oceanic death, grabbing props from the discount clearance aisle is an absolute rookie mistake. 19. Leaving a mangled, smoking motorcycle on the side of a major highway is a fantastic way to convince the world you died in a tragic wreck. The insurance company paid out a fortune without asking questions. However, the deceased rider was so deeply obsessed with motorcycles that he could not stop riding. He bought the exact same model of bike, painted it with identical custom colors, and proudly posted photos to his favorite online biker forum. He even used his original username. Forum members instantly noticed that ghosts generally do not have such immaculate taste in custom paint. 20. Convincing your entire family that your parachute completely failed during a skydiving trip takes a special kind of cruelty. The funeral was absolutely packed, complete with weeping relatives and expensive floral arrangements. 3 months into his glorious new existence, this legend got pulled over for a sloppy DUI in Arizona. In a sheer moment of drunken panic, he handed the confused police officer his real, original driver's license. The officer had to politely inform him that legally deceased citizens are generally not pulled over for swerving dangerously through a Taco Bell drive-thru at 2 in the morning. 21. Sometimes pure ego completely overpowers common sense. A man staged a horrific murder scene, vanished entirely from the map, and quietly started over in a freezing town in Montana. The escape was utterly flawless until a local bar decided to host a celebrity lookalike contest. Unable to resist the spotlight, he entered the competition dressed entirely as himself from his past life. He obviously won first place, and the local newspaper proudly printed a massive photo of the champion. He is officially the only man dumb enough to win his own lookalike contest while hiding from the government. 22. Fading into the jungles of South America while your grieving family holds a massive memorial service sounds like a dark thriller. Meanwhile, the reality was aggressively pathetic. The supposed jungle explorer was actually just working a miserable graveyard shift at a cheap customer service call center in Nevada. The absolute climax of his stupidity happened when his own biological brother called the support line complaining about a billing issue. He recognized the supposedly dead man's voice instantly. Imagine explaining to your weeping mother that your deceased sibling is currently refusing to waive a $30 late fee. 23. Faking a massive heart attack at the office and having your wife casually misidentify a random homeless man's corpse at the morgue is shockingly dark. The guy fled straight to the beaches of Mexico, totally free from his old life. But Mexican fitness centers were apparently just not up to his standards. He kept his expensive American gym membership fully active and visited the exact same branch 18 months later for a quick pump. The gym manager instantly locked eyes with a ghost casually jogging on treadmill number 4. Getting your cardio in should never cost you a decade in prison. 24. Staging a devastating fall off a jagged cliff requires massive resources to investigate. Search and rescue teams spent 9 exhausting days scouring the wilderness with highly trained dogs and infrared helicopters. All the while, the tragic victim was sitting comfortably in his girlfriend's basement just 4 miles away, eating pizza. The multi-million-dollar search operation came to a screeching halt when the girlfriend's nosy neighbor spotted the deceased hiker outside in his pajamas, dragging the recycling bin to the curb at midnight. Doing exactly one household chore completely dismantled an entire criminal conspiracy. 25. A staged boating accident followed by a quiet relocation to the frozen wilderness of Alaska seems totally bulletproof. This guy built a remote cabin entirely off the grid, practically guaranteeing absolute isolation. Unfortunately, living completely off the land gets incredibly annoying, so he eventually caved and ordered some comfort items online. When the delivery truck finally rolled up the snowy driveway, the driver stepping out with the package just happened to be his own cousin. The world is a bizarrely small place. Awkward family reunions hit entirely different when one relative legally possesses a death certificate. 26. Evading federal tax charges by faking a tragic demise and sipping rum on a Caribbean beach is the ultimate white-collar dream. This guy had beat the entire system. The only problem was his gigantic need for validation. He called into a popular financial advice podcast using a fake name and a horribly disguised voice just to brag about his brilliant escape. He ended up blurting out way too many highly specific details regarding his own fraud case. It turns out that bored IRS agents listen to finance podcasts during their morning commute, and they immediately recognize the smug idiot. 27. Leaving specialized climbing gear dangling off a terrifyingly high cliff face is a classic disappearing act. This supposed victim assumed a new identity and relocated to a sunny beach town to become a chilled-out surfing instructor. His new life was flawless until a national travel magazine did a massive feature highlighting hidden coastal gems, placing his deeply tanned face squarely on the front cover. His former dentist happened to buy that exact issue at the grocery store, recognized his highly expensive custom dental work, and immediately dialed the authorities. Flossing daily might actually put you behind bars. 28. Staging a terrible wilderness death to start over as a completely legal marijuana farmer in Oregon is honestly a solid career pivot. The guy found his true passion and enjoyed a very peaceful existence. But the desire for agricultural validation ruined everything. He entered his prized crop into a massive cannabis competition and proudly took home the third-place trophy. A major photography spread in High Times magazine featured him posing enthusiastically next to his giant plants. Shockingly, DEA agents actually read those magazines too. Having your smiling face and active arrest warrant perfectly aligned on glossy paper is just bad business. 29. Staging a dramatic drowning during a luxury cruise vacation sounds like something straight out of a blockbuster spy movie. The plan was to jump overboard into the pitch-black ocean and swim over to a getaway boat piloted by a loyal buddy. It was a flawless operation until his completely useless friend suddenly got a terrible bout of seasickness, panicked, and drove the boat back to shore. This left our criminal mastermind frantically floating in the freezing ocean until the Coast Guard mercifully fished him out. Explaining why a drowned man was aggressively treading water 10 miles away is deeply embarrassing. 30. Tricking your deeply devastated family into believing you died in an explosive motorcycle crash overseas is brutally cold. Meanwhile, this dead man was busy getting a fantastic tan in Florida, running a very lucrative fishing charter business. He was so proud of his new company that he constantly posted his face and exact GPS location tags all over Instagram. His suspicious brother found the social media page, used a fake name to book a highly expensive deep-sea fishing trip, and simply waited on the dock. That had to be the most agonizingly awkward 4-hour boat ride in history. 31. Faking your demise in a massive, earth-shattering warehouse explosion guarantees nobody will ever look for your remains. The blast was incredibly dramatic, blowing out windows for blocks. The brilliant plan completely fell apart during the arson investigation when detectives checked the alleyway security cameras. Exactly 2 minutes before the massive fireball erupted, footage showed the supposedly incinerated victim casually strolling out the back emergency exit. To make matters infinitely worse, he actually stopped, looked directly into the camera lens, and gave a friendly little wave. He thought he was waving goodbye to his debts, but he was greeting a prison sentence. 32. Disappearing entirely during an isolated camping trip and leaving behind a heavily dramatic suicide note blaming crushing financial shame is incredibly dark. His family wept, and his massive debts were officially wiped out. But living off the grid is expensive, and this guy apparently hated actual work. A few months into the afterlife, he casually went online and filed for state unemployment benefits using his real social security number. The government's archaic computer system immediately threw a massive red flag. Dealing with government bureaucracy is terrible, but it will absolutely catch your stupid mistakes eventually. 33. Fleeing to South America after staging a horrific, fiery car crash is a classic villain move. This mastermind learned fluent Spanish, embraced the local culture of Argentina, and totally vanished from the American justice system. But the lonely reality of an expatriate caught up with him. He got terribly homesick and decided to launch a lifestyle blog documenting his cool new existence. He uploaded beautiful photos of his gorgeous apartment, accidentally including crystal-clear shots of the street signs and his building number. Federal immigration officers really enjoy reading beautifully curated travel blogs before making international arrests. 34. Faking a tragedy to start a brand new life in Dublin seems incredibly romantic. 2 years of total freedom went by before this fugitive desperately missed watching American football. He waltzed into a heavily crowded expat sports bar on a Sunday to catch the big game. In an act of unparalleled stupidity, he wore his favorite, incredibly rare team jersey that proudly displayed his actual last name in giant letters across his back. The bartender pouring the Guinness also happened to be an American transplant who closely followed true crime news. Sometimes team loyalty is a one-way ticket to federal lockup. 35. Staging a violent grizzly bear attack in the deep wilderness is a genuinely bold move. Ripped tent, scattered hiking boots, and copious amounts of animal blood convinced the world this guy was fully digested. He relocated to a boring suburb and successfully laid low. But 3 months later, he got absolutely terrible service at a local Denny's and let his anger win. He left a scathing, highly detailed 1-star Yelp review complaining about cold eggs. The problem? He used his real, supposedly deceased name and his actual profile picture. The waitress didn't just spit in his food, she called the feds. 36. A tragic scuba diving accident in the crystal-clear Caribbean waters is the perfect cover story to ditch your miserable life and escape straight to Europe. 4 luxurious years of sangria and beaches went by without a single hitch. Then, this arrogant idiot got into a very minor fender bender in the middle of Spain and decided he absolutely needed to sue the other driver for damages. While furiously filling out the international police report, his muscle memory kicked in, and he confidently wrote down his real, original American Social Security number. That specific piece of paperwork created the greatest plot twist in fraud history. 37. You would assume an actual, literal rocket scientist would possess enough brain power to pull off a flawless fake murder. He staged a violent mugging, ditched his identity, and fled down to the gorgeous beaches of Brazil. The brilliant escape went totally sideways when his massive ego demanded attention. He opened a massive seafood restaurant, boldly named the establishment after his real self, and even printed a giant photo of his smiling face directly on the dinner menus. A group of off-duty United States Marshals literally walked in for a nice vacation dinner and recognized him before the appetizers arrived. 38. Blaming your absolutely terrible boss in a heavily detailed suicide note after faking a fatal industrial accident is a masterclass in professional pettiness. The dramatic impact of his supposed final words was entirely ruined by his choice of delivery method. Instead of leaving a handwritten letter, this modern genius decided to email the heartbreaking manifesto directly from his smartphone. He completely forgot to turn off his location services. The digital metadata firmly proved that his tragic, weeping farewell was actively composed while he was sitting poolside, drinking a massive margarita at a luxury resort in Cancun. 39. Planting fake blood and staging a horrific murder scene let this guy completely vanish from society for 6 stress-free months. It was a perfect, unsolved crime that baffled local detectives. But peace and quiet is completely useless if you suffer from a painfully fragile internet ego. A random troll heavily insulted his past life on Twitter, and he absolutely could not resist firing back an angry response. He logged right into his old account, complete with his real name and a bio that ironically read, "Living my best life." Proving a complete stranger wrong online is apparently way more important than avoiding prison. 40. Framing your annoying business partner for your own gruesome murder before catching a first-class flight to Costa Rica is honestly a very solid, highly cinematic plot. It absolutely would have worked perfectly, leaving his partner rotting in a cell forever. However, the fugitive simply could not handle paying for a brand new streaming subscription. He kept aggressively logging into his old American Netflix account from his tropical hideout. The massive spike in foreign IP addresses popped up during the cyber investigation, completely destroying his cover. Imagine successfully pulling off the crime of the century, only to get rated over Breaking Bad. 41. Faking a tragic drowning in a raging river just to escape an incredibly annoying wife is a wildly dramatic solution to a standard marriage problem. The guy quietly moved a mere 2 towns over and bizarrely managed to get legally married again within 12 months. His brilliant plan exploded spectacularly in the middle of a massive Costco warehouse. By sheer awful luck, both his grieving widow and his brand new bride showed up to shop in the exact same aisle at the exact same moment. They locked eyes on the supposedly deceased man, furiously loading bulk toilet paper into his shopping cart. 42. Forcing your brother to lie to your family about a fatal overseas motorcycle crash just to collect the insurance money is completely ruthless. The guy took his cut of the cash, moved quietly up to Canada, and lived a totally stress-free life. Then his massive ego demanded to see what people were saying about him. He logged onto a local memorial website and actually left a heartfelt comment on his own tragic obituary. The absolute kicker? He posted it using an active social media account that prominently featured a crystal-clear, completely recent photo of his smiling face as the profile picture. 43. Leaving a heavily mangled ATV covered in synthetic blood out in the scorching desert creates a beautiful illusion of a terrifying wilderness tragedy. The driver vanished into the dusty streets of Mexico to start completely fresh. But avoiding capture is hard, and giving up the convenience of free 2-day shipping is apparently impossible. He stubbornly kept his original Amazon Prime account active. His supposedly grieving widow logged in to cancel the subscription and immediately noticed fresh orders rapidly shipping straight to an apartment in Tijuana. Nothing says "rest in peace" quite like Prime delivery beachwear and premium sunscreen. 44. If you owe highly dangerous people massive gambling debts, staging an incredibly bloody, elaborate murder scene to erase the slate makes total sense. The terrifying crime scene successfully convinced everyone that the mob finally took him out. Exactly 3 months later, the gambling addiction hit him incredibly hard. Believing he was a total ghost, he casually strolled right back onto the velvet floor of the exact same casino where he owed hundreds of thousands of dollars. He actually sat at the blackjack table trying to win back his old money. Security was, predictably, not very amused by his sudden resurrection. 45. Burning down your own house with a stolen medical cadaver inside is a top-tier disappearing act. The man was legally declared ash, and his massive debts vanished. But he made one critical mistake. He genuinely loved his vintage comic book collection too much to let it burn. He had secretly moved the boxes to a climate-controlled storage unit before striking the match. 6 months into his new life as a dead man, he was caught trying to pawn a highly recognizable, graded copy of Spider-Man #1. The pawn shop owner was a fellow nerd who knew exactly who owned that specific comic. Nerd culture literally put him behind bars. 46. Sending the local police a highly cinematic, deeply disturbing ransom video proving you were kidnapped and executed is a terrifying way to vanish. The production value was absolutely incredible. There was just one painfully tiny flaw in this Hollywood-level escape plan. He casually left the camera's master memory card sitting on the kitchen counter at his mother's house. While detectives were conducting a deeply emotional sympathy interview with the weeping woman, they found hours of blooper reels showing him giggling while applying the fake wounds. The mom went from devastatingly heartbroken to violently enraged in about 3 seconds flat. 47. Orchestrating a massive armed robbery at your own luxury jewelry store and faking your brutal murder to secure a $2 million payout is wildly ambitious. Fleeing with the cash to live entirely inside a damp, windowless storage unit is completely deranged. He stayed locked in the metal box for 3 whole months to avoid the federal manhunt. But a millionaire lifestyle apparently demands premium delivery. He constantly ordered high-end sushi through Grubhub, directing drivers right to the giant orange roll-up door. One deeply confused delivery driver finally reported the strange guy eating expensive tuna rolls inside a metal locker. 48. Staging a terrifying drowning incident in a fast-moving river and quietly relocating to the middle of nowhere in Oklahoma is a bulletproof strategy for a peaceful life. This guy stayed completely invisible for years, keeping entirely to himself. Then the massive annual county chili cook-off arrived, and his pride simply could not resist the challenge. He aggressively entered the spicy competition and proudly took home the second-place ribbon. The local newspaper did a massive feature on the smiling winner, publicly praising his secret ingredient. Unfortunately, his heavily guarded secret identity became a federal crime the second that photo hit the front page. 49. Jumping off a massive suspension bridge at midnight, leaving only a pair of expensive shoes and a sad note, is the classic cinematic exit. This guy completely vanished, successfully leaving his crippling credit card debt behind. But he simply could not abandon his level 99 World of Warcraft guild. He logged in just 2 weeks after his own funeral to participate in a massive weekend raid. He was talking into his headset, using his exact same voice, telling the same terrible jokes. One of his online friends actually attended his memorial service and immediately recognized the dead guy, aggressively screaming about healing potions. 50. Burning your entire house to the foundation to fake a fiery demise is an incredibly chaotic but highly effective way to erase your identity. Moving 2 states away and building a quiet new life from the ashes makes for the ultimate escape. The entire master plan was absolutely flawless until his deeply stupid dog managed to dig under the backyard fence and escape. Animal control quickly picked up the wandering mutt and routinely scanned the digital microchip implanted in its neck. The scanner popped up his real name and his completely active new cell phone number. An avalanche of extremely uncomfortable legal questions followed. So, who do you think was the absolute biggest moron on this list? I know exactly which one made you feel better about your own life choices. Argue with me in the comments down below. Let's see who actually defends these idiots. If this level of stupidity made you smile, violently smash that like button and subscribe for more mind-blowing absurdity. Don't be lazy, click it.